Welcome, Alex Kershaw. Thank you for joining us here today. I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions about your new book, The Bedford Boys. Why did you decide to tell this story?
I wanted to write a history about working people and their fight on the home front and abroad. I also wanted to write about ordinary people who made great sacrifices and did so with great dignity. I also very much admired this community and what it did.
Why would a Brit focus on this particularly American story?
Bedford felt very English to me, not surprising given its history and culture. As a great admirer of America and a 1994 immigrant, married to a Minnesotan with a 4-year-old son born in America, I was looking forward to a story which to me represented America at its very best. I have lived in 2 small towns in America, as well as LA and San Francisco. I felt I could understand a little about the community of Bedford, given that I came from a similar blue-collar, unpretentious town in Britain.
Did the sadness of the story affect you a great deal?
A few times I was tearful when 80-year-old men cried as they told me their stories. While writing the book, I was trying to piece together so much information from different interviews that I rarely felt the tragedy. But a few times I found myself in tears, not really knowing why.
What do you think is uplifting about the book?
I believe it provides a kind of catharsis. I know some people in Bedford believe their sufferings brought them closer to God. The remarkable resilience and quiet determination of families to go on was awesome. The parents who lost sons had reared large families in the Depression, and it is amazing to think that the tests they endured in their faith, in their country, and in God. They're not famous, but their endurance is a great testimony to why America overcame the great obstacles of the recent times. The book also celebrates Americans at their best, the spirit of young men who gave everything so that we might be free.
Did you spend a lot of time in Virginia and Bedford?
I visited several times, spending most of my time in people's homes throughout Bedford County. I was treated with great courtesy. I laughed a great deal. It was not a sad experience for me. Bedford is a dignified place, very aware of its past, but very energetic about its future, and very appealing because it's a community that has endured great tragedy, but has gone on to thrive.
Does the book have a moral?
No, other than the obvious. War is terrible. It ends in death, it kills and destroys family, and it damages are felt for generations. But sometimes the sacrifice of life is for the greater good. In defeating Nazism, that was certainly the case. I am deeply grateful to the citizens of Bedford for what they gave to let me grow up free.
In the end, were the Bedford Boys just cannon fodder?
Many mistakes were made in the planning for the landing on Omaha Beach, and I highlight these in the book. Lives could have been saved if things would have been done differently, but hindsight is always 20/20. The fact is that Americans won the battle through great and daring courage. They succeeded. War is always chaotic, never predictable. The first wave in any invasion is likely to suffer great losses. Going by Allied predictions, the casualties were not as bad as expected. But there were many failures, and most historians now acknowledge that different decisions before landing at Omaha Beach would have saved many men. More Bedford boys would have come home if the beach had been bombed. If tanks had landed, if the invasion had been at night, if intelligence about the Germans had been better, if key defenses had been destroyed, if they had gone in lighter rather than weighed down.
Why should we read this book now?
In trying to fathom the enormity of 9/11, we can look at Bedford as an example of how a community dealt with a stunning loss. The book also tells the story of how Americans gave their lives at a time when they had no choice and when freedom was at stake. When governments send young Americans into harm's way, they should always know what war cost families and American communities. There should always be a clear, justifiable reason for any American to lose their life serving their country.
Is the book anti-war?
It can be read many ways. If you're against violence of any kind, you will find that the book is a cautionary tale about how terrible war is, because it shows the impact of combat on a very human scale. If you also believe there is something glorious and noble about what the Bedford Boys achieved, you will find it as an inspiring book and an example of how war is necessary in some circumstances. I think the Americans who fought the war were great warriors, even though a few of them saw themselves as such. The veterans of Normandy will walk like giants among us. They will all die in the coming years, and we should honor them as the great Americans they are.
What was the most moving part of the story for you?
Moving parts. I cried when I heard one account of so many boys dying only a few feet from safety, being cut down as they went to save other teenagers. These people were so young. They never really got to live. They had so much promise. They never even got to fight together. They were butchered before they even got ashore.
Well, thank you, Alex Kershaw, for coming on the show today. Everyone, get The Bedford Boys. It's a very good book. You can find it in your local Barnes & Noble or Borders stores.